Welcome back to the double leg. I am one half of your host, Hajai Picks. The other half of your host, the parlay. Welcome in. How we doing?
Yo, what's up, man, dude? Another weekend of fights and combat sports.
Yep. We're gonna recap the UFC Vegas 63 today, as well as the big boxing match, Jake Paul and Anderson Silva. We'll start off with that one. For me, I had Jake Paul on the money line that I got 2 months ago at even money that I was feeling really good about because he had to close at like minus 250. And then I had Fight to Go the Distance, which cashed as well. So that helped out a lot for the day. On the day, I think I was up about 6 units, including the boxing match and all the UFC. So always a good day to go positive. I was 6-5 as far as my picks on the UFC card. Well, for the boxing match, um, I'll say my Wi-Fi was lagging a little bit, but I got to watch the first round and then rounds 5, 6, 7, and 8. So I thought the first round Anderson threw like one punch, so got to give that to Jake Paul. But towards the end, I think round 5 Anderson probably took, and then 6, 7, and 8 I thought Jake took. Obviously 8 got the knockdown. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, no. So I was at a wedding last night, and I had to leave the dance floor to go watch the fight. I was like, I can't miss this shit. I got to see what's going to happen in this fight. But it was interesting. Anderson. It's kind of what I expected. I wanted Anderson to win, but Jake Paul, the youth was on his side, the power is on his side. But kind of what I expected to happen did with Anderson Silva's not going to have enough power to really hurt Jake Paul. He'll have decent volume, but he's going to be a lot harder to hit than Jake Paul thinks. And he's going to be pretty tough for a 47-year-old. But at the end of the day, I saw a lot of people online saying Anderson Silva won the fight. I don't think so. I just don't think he did enough to warrant a victory. Just a decent fight. I don't know. I wasn't just blown away by either one of their performances. Hats off to Anderson for being 47 years old and still getting after it, and hats off to Jake Paul for going 6-0 or whatever he is right now. Still, regardless of who he's fought, for a kid who hasn't had any real boxing experience until 3-4 years ago, he looks pretty good in there. He actually does. He's getting better each time out fundamentally. I'm not a Jake Paul fan, but you got to respect what he's done and the kind of money he's bringing in.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I am never one to hate on Jake Paul. I'm always one to back him up. And I thought he definitely won the fight. I was glad that he got that knockdown in round 8, just for the fact that people would have been like, that was kind of like a stamp on it a little bit, in my opinion. And for the people that say, oh, he needs to fight a real boxer, it's his 6th win. It's his 6th professional fight.
Right.
Most of these, professional boxers you see are going to be taking fights that they're minus 5,000 to win.
Yeah.
And Jake Paul is always near even to minus 200, even an underdog in some cases. So it's like, you can't really knock him. Like, obviously people are going to get in their feels a little bit because he's coming into the sport not having a lot of experience, and he's one of the faces of boxing right now. And if you're a lifelong boxing fan, or even just a lifelong combat sports fan, to see someone come into your space with not as much experience and succeed, they're going to be pretty pissed. So
and the downfall and it's kind of a lose-lose situation for Jake, because coming into boxing, all eyes have been on him since his very first fight, as to where professional boxers don't really get any eyes on him until they've already fought these guys that have losing records and stuff. So, Jake's had eyes on him from the beginning. If he wins, okay, yeah, he should beat the 47-year-old retired MMA fighter. He should beat Ben Askren, the wrestler. But if he loses, then it's, oh, okay, you can't even compete with the 47-year-old guy. So it's a lose-lose for Jake. But he's early in his career, so you can't really knock who he's fighting at all. He's probably had a tougher few opponents than most of these big-time boxers did in their first few fights. Anderson Silva, he's 47, but he's a lifelong, striking martial artist. Tyron Woodley, he's not a boxer by any means, but he's got a big right hand that he's knocked plenty of people out with in the UFC, and he's tough and he's strong. So, I mean, yeah, hats off to Jake, man. He's bringing in a ton of money. He's still extremely young. And I
Right.
don't think, I mean, what is he, 24? Is he 25 yet? He's got to be around that ballpark.
Yeah, I think he's around 25 or 26.
25, 26. Yeah. So, I mean, he hasn't really hit his athletic prime in combat sports yet. So, yeah, I think people just love to hate on him because he's the YouTube Disney kid, but he's doing it the right way. You know, each fight he's progressively, you know, facing a guy that has a little more attributes, a little bit better striking. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes from here. I know, you know, he's calling out Nate Diaz, and I honestly think Nate Diaz in the boxing ring at this age is a step down from Anderson Silva because Diaz, you know, against Tony Ferguson looked gassed after 1 or 2 rounds. And Diaz, you know, doesn't have a lot of pop and a lot of power on his shots anymore. I know he rocked Leon Edwards late in the fight, but I don't know, man. I'd like to see him fight somebody, I don't know, maybe a boxer, but, you know, to be a fair fight, there's not any really good names that would draw a lot of attention if he fights a boxer right now until he gets up to that, you know, championship level. So,
and in his defense, like all the people that are really calling him out or all the people that could sell a pay-per-view are MMA fighters. Like at the UFC, ex-UFC fighters that they just have a bigger name than any boxer that he could really put together to fight him. And you see it all the time. Like all the ex-UFC fighters will call him out because they know that they're going to get a payday. You just saw it with Uriah Hall after he beat Le'Veon Bell, and obviously Nate Diaz wants to fight him too. It's like, it's the money. Why would you fight someone that is going to make you less money just for the sake of you know, people being happy? You know, in his defense, like I'll come to his defense for a lot of these things, but
and at the end of the day, he's an entertainer first. I mean, the kid grew up entertaining, like not even boxing. You know, the YouTube clips and all that stuff, Disney. You know, so that's probably, you know, the name of Jake's game is entertain, get knockouts, fight some notable names, and make as much money as possible doing it. So he's not going to take some of these fights that are going to bring in less money by any means. That's probably the number one priority for Jake. I know he wants to be a world champion boxer and stuff, but, you know, like we said earlier, he's only 26. He's got plenty of time to get to that level if he wants to. But for now, man, he's getting a lot of money, and he's fighting guys like Anderson Silva, who's arguably one of the best UFC fighters and mixed martial artists ever. So hats off to him, man. You got to respect him. Hate him. Even if you hate him, that's fine, but you got to tip your hat for him to getting in there in the first place.
Yeah. Even if you hate him, you still respect him on some
level.
Oh,
yeah.
All right, enough boxing talk. Back to the MMA. UFC Vegas 63. Couple surprising finishes, couple nasty injuries, and a whole lot of violence. If we look at starting with the main event, the disappointing main event. This one was tough, a tough ending. Calvin Kattar, I don't know exactly what the diagnosis is, but you saw visibly his leg was popped. Like it popped twice, I believe, in round one. When he landed on it, it looked like it popped, and then he tried to start round two, took a leg kick to the front leg, and then the back leg just popped again. So I don't know exactly what it is. Do you have any insight on what exactly it is? Diagnosis?
No, I haven't seen exactly what it is, but I mean, it definitely looked like. To me, it looked like a knee. Watching it, I haven't really watched the replays because I mean, there just wasn't much to watch. But it looked like a knee. It looked like he kind of stepped on it wrong, and then in between rounds and coming into the second round, it's like, okay, maybe it's, you know, he just kind of tweaked it. It's getting a little bit better, and then he took that one step, and you could tell there was something really wrong. So that sucks, man. I was talking earlier. This would be the 4th main event since May that has ended because of an injury that wasn't, you know, necessarily fight related. You had Alexander Rakic with the knee against Jan Blachowicz. You had Brian Ortega against Yair Rodriguez with his shoulder. Tom Aspinall a week later with his knee. And then now you got Calvin Kattar with the knee as well. It's just unfortunate because all of those were going to be really, really fun fight night main events.
Yeah, they like really good fights too.
Yeah.
Very tough, very tough. I'm 2-2 in those. I had Aspinall and Kattar, and then I had Yair Rodriguez and Jan Blachowicz. So
Yeah.
I guess you can't complain too much. You win some, you lose some. But
Yep.
for this one, I thought Arnold Allen looked pretty good in the first round. Doubled him up on the strikes pretty much because there's only 8 seconds in the second round. So I thought he looked pretty good. They both kind of came out slower, trying to get each other's reads, but Calvin Kattar is going to ease into the fight, so it's hard to judge, exactly who would have won that fight if had it gone the full 5 rounds. But yeah,
I thought Arnold Allen looked good as well. He definitely won the first round, and the leg injury happens, but I feel like that was going to be a 5-round fight for sure. I think it was going to go the distance, and it would have been really high level and good stuff to watch. So I was super disappointed. All bets and gambling aside, I was just super disappointed we didn't get to see those two go all the way. So kind of sucks.
Yeah, I wanted to see how Arnold Allen would look, in later rounds.
Right. Yeah.
Because
exactly.
we haven't seen him in that sense. But prayers up to Calvin Kattar. Hopefully a speedy recovery. We'll move on to the co-main event. This one, the most puzzling scorecard that you could probably see if you watch the fight. 28-29 on one card, 29-28 for Tim Means on one card, and then 27-30 for Max Griffin on the third. A lot of total strikes for Tim Means, but none of them hitting very hard.
Right.
And then a lot of control time for Max Griffin, pretty same on the takedowns. But I thought Max Griffin won this fight pretty convincingly. Tim Means looked pretty slow. He just didn't look. He looked old. So I'll just say that he just looked old. And Max Griffin kind of let him back into the fight a couple times when he could have just, looked to establish himself more. And that's a big reason why I didn't want to take him at -180, -190.
Right.
So so I had the little play on Tim Means, but I wasn't like too heavily invested. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, no, I had Tim Means just because I was betting on not so much Tim Means as a fighter or skill-wise, but Tim Means for durability and in hopes that Max Griffin would get tired as the rounds went on, and Tim Means would kind of take over. Because Tim Means does throw a decent amount of volume. You kind of see it on the stat sheet, throwing 140 total strikes, which was way more than Griffin. But if you look at the significant strikes, they're very, very close. But it was a very obvious win for Max Griffin. And if you look at the judges' scorecards, one of them scored at 29-28 for Tim Means, which is crazy. And the other two had it 30-27. I mean, the inconsistency in judging in that fight and then across, the last 4 or 5 months has been pretty bad, in my opinion. There's no world where Tim Means won that fight. So I was super surprised to hear a split decision. And even Tim Means started kind of laughing and shaking his head like there's no way when they called his name. So
I thought for somehow we were gonna get another decision to just swing in the whole opposite favor, and I was gonna cash my bet on it.
Yeah,
it's like there's no way.
Yeah,
but that's about it for that one. But on to the heavyweights: Waldo Cortez Acosta and Jared Vanderaa. This one was just super frustrating to watch, in my opinion. Like I had the over 1.5 in the fight, so I was glad that they didn't start swinging too hard at the start. But I also had Cortez Acosta by KO, and the dude just refused to really let his hands go, and he could not check a leg kick to save his life. He was just so heavy on his front leg. And Jared Vanderaa was just whipping his big old leg at it, and you could see that he was definitely a 7-0 fighter, and he didn't know how to handle a leg kick to save his life.
Yeah, Jared Vanderaa actually made me a little bit nervous at times with those leg kicks. Those are very heavy leg kicks, and you could tell they were wearing down Acosta a little bit. But yeah, like you said, didn't let his hands go. He's kind of loading up on some shots. I think he's going to be a decent fighter. I don't think he's going to be, some crazy heavyweight that goes on any big-time runs in the UFC. Jared Vanderaa got knocked out by Chase Sherman, who can't buy a win most of the time. I know he's coming off a win, but so, I thought he'd go out there and knock Vanderaa out. Obviously, it didn't happen. Acosta's going to learn, though. He's going to grow. I just don't see him being some big stud in the heavyweight division. But like you said, he's only 7-0. I probably should have known better throwing a KO prop on him, being so new. And Vanderaa, even though he doesn't have a lot of wins in the UFC, he does have a lot of experience. Yeah. And he made it more interesting than a lot of people probably thought.
Yeah, I will say he looked a bit better in this fight than he has the past 3 or 4. He did make the change to King's MMA. I heard them talking about that on the broadcast, but still not enough to compete with, a fighter making his debut as a heavyweight. Yeah, I don't think there's too high of a ceiling for Cortez Acosta, but I think he'll be around for a bit. Yeah. Talented enough. He did show a good amount of heart taking those leg kicks.
Mm-hmm.
Still coming back and not like bitching out about it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But
I see him. Okay, here's the perfect Cortez Acosta position. Just be a heavyweight you can throw on the prelims and hope for an exciting fight sometimes. Kind of get people interested in watching the prelims type fighter. But yeah, for me, that's about as far as it goes for him.
Yeah, I mean, he's a big dude, 6'4", every bit of 260. So
yeah,
I think he should just lean onto his power and stop.
Mm-hmm.
Just go that route. So.
Yep.
All right, the Josh Fremd and Tresean Gore fight. This one was one of the surprising finishes I alluded to. Josh Fremd almost got his head ripped off in that one. The first round was very interesting. Tresean Gore went for a good amount of takedowns. Got 3 out of 4. That was something I did not see coming. Tresean Gore coming out shooting takedowns. And he looked decent at it. So maybe he added a couple wrinkles in the time that he's been off. Hasn't been off that long, but he got knocked out in his the fight before that. So maybe he had it before and just couldn't show it off.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't. The only play I had on this one was the under 2.5, and that obviously hit. I didn't have any investment on Josh Fremd, so I wasn't too caught up in it. But I know you had Tresean Gore winning that one. You placed a bet on that one, so that had to feel good for you.
Yeah, no. So I know when we talked, we were kind of leaning Fremd last week, but somewhere along, I started thinking, and Tresean Gore coming off of a knockout, it's kind of do or die for you now. You got to get that win in the UFC. He's a very explosive guy, and that's what I thought. If he goes out there in the first round, I think he could find a KO against Josh Fremd. He went out there shooting takedowns. I thought, we're not going to get the KO. He's going to get tired, and we're going to get in the second and third, and Fremd's going to take over. And I honestly think that might have happened if he didn't find that submission. Yeah. He's so explosive. He throws really big shots on the feet, and then all of the takedowns. I thought, he's going to for sure gas here, and then my bet's toast. But we won with Tresean Gore on the money line. I had the KO prop as well. He obviously got the submission. I didn't see the submission coming at all. I thought KO, if you went with Gore, was the right play. But obviously, it's MMA, and a lot of things don't turn out the way you want it to. But I did have him on the money line in a bet just because it's do or die time for him. And sometimes when fighters know that, their back's against the wall, they come out and have a good performance. So we got that one to cash.
Yeah, I wonder what Tresean Gore by sub was.
I'm going to guess every bit of plus 1,100, plus 1,200. I'd say probably that ballpark for sure.
Had to be. It was an exciting fight, though.
Yeah, it was good.
Shout out to Tresean Gore getting the win with his back up against the wall. I was definitely getting that feeling, too, like throughout the week. You know how they do the press or not the press conference, but the one-on-one with the press, usually on like Wednesdays. And when the dude talks, like you could just tell he's got a lot of passion in him.
Yeah,
a lot of pride too. And a guy like that, you can't. It's hard to count him out. The power and the mindset that he has can take him some places. It's just about putting it together. For Josh Fremd, I feel like he's got a lot of skills, but he's just missing the mindset, the mindset and the intelligence in there too.
Right.
Good frame. He's like 6'4" or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A lot of really good skills on the ground, but just puts himself in some bad spots. So
right, makes some mistakes for sure.
Yeah. Move on to the probably the talk of the fight night. Tough decision here. This one, um, when I was watching it, I thought Jacoby took the first round. For sure. He had more strikes. And I mean, Khalil landed a couple, but I wasn't sure if it was enough, and I don't think it was enough. But watching the second round, I was like, there was a less of a discrepancy in the volume, so he's a little closer on the amount of strikes. Khalil landed a good amount of power. In my mind, I'm thinking, based off of how the fights have gone recently, I could see a world where a judge would give that to Khalil Roundtree. So I looked at the live betting market, and Khalil Roundtree sitting at plus 650. And I'm like, I was very tempted to just like throw a little bit on it, because I'm like, it's just the way that these judges have been scoring. I could see a world where they give that round to Khalil Roundtree, and going into round 3, I feel it could be anybody's fight. I ultimately I didn't. I'm a little pissed I didn't, but because I had Khalil Roundtree by KO for just like a little sprinkle, and I was like, that's enough investment for me in this fight. Like I don't want to get too much more invested. And then round 3, I thought Khalil Roundtree. It was close again. It was all, I would say rounds 2 and 3 were very close. I would definitely give round 1 to Dustin Jacoby. But round 3, I would have probably would have gave it to Khalil Roundtree. If I'm watching that live, I give that 29-28 to Dustin Jacoby 7 days out of the week. If I go back and watch it, I may be inclined. It's always hard because you have the bias in your mind if you go back and watch it, that like who won, so you're kind of looking
Right.
to justify that. But I don't know. Yeah, like I said, watching it live, I thought Dustin Jacoby won. But then in the back of my mind, I'm like, the way that they have been scoring these fights, the power is so rewarded. And Khalil Roundtree, regardless if he hits you clean or not, it looks like it can do some damage. But ultimately, they gave it to Khalil Roundtree. 2 out of the 3 judges did. But the only reason that I'm like so confused is one of the judges that gave Khalil Roundtree the win gave him round 1 and didn't give him round 2, and then gave him round 3. So that I'm like, that just seems weird. I know you'll have something to say about this. So
Yeah, no, it comes back to the inconsistency on the judges. Round 1, if you had Khalil Roundtree winning, on the judges' scorecards, that's fine. But the first round, I just don't see how that was Khalil's. But I do think, I see a lot of people saying robbery. I don't really throw around that term, lightly. I don't know if it was necessarily a robbery, because it comes back to the power and the damage. Jacoby is a really good kickboxer. He doesn't lack power, but he doesn't throw a lot of power. He almost point fights guys like Khalil Roundtree, who he knows has a lot of power, and he knows he could get his light shut off at any time. So he looked really good technically. He was landing a lot of good jabs, some leg kicks, but if you look at the fight from the judges' standpoint, what they're looking for, damage, power shots, that weigh out the point fighting. He did land a lot of really good leg kicks. He landed some good right hands, especially later on in the fight. I thought Khalil Roundtree definitely won the 3rd round. It just came down to those first 2. I was very surprised to see a judge had that first round for Khalil. I thought, if anything, it would have been the 2nd and 3rd round if you did have Khalil winning. But if you do look at the significant strikes, they were, in Jacoby's favor. Total strikes were heavily in Jacoby's favor. Just kind of one of those things, though, that if you go back and watch it a second time, it might seem a little bit closer than you originally thought. I think Jacoby was definitely the busier fighter, and that was very clear to the audience. But you taking the damage and the power shots and all the heavy leg kicks, take those into account, and it's a little bit closer than it looks. But I had Jacoby. I definitely thought he was going to get his hand raised. Just watching it live, I really did. He didn't. Split decision. I almost saw that one coming. I thought, okay, just because Khalil did land some really big shots, I could see this
Yeah.
being a split decision, but Jacoby would edge him out. But went to Khalil Roundtree. It's not a terrible loss for Jacoby because he didn't go get sparked or anything.
Right.
It's a good win for Khalil because you just beat a guy who's on a pretty damn good win streak inside the UFC. So curious to see where these guys go next, though. I don't know where exactly Khalil Roundtree fits into the 205 division right now.
Yeah.
And then Jacoby, same way. I mean, Jacoby's on a 6 or 7 fight win streak. And instead of really jumping up the ranks and fighting somebody, they gave him Khalil Roundtree. So now with a loss to him, it's like, what do you do with him now, too? He's just going to keep kind of fighting those mid-tier, top 15 through 20 guys. So,
Yeah.
good fight. I mean, good fight.
Yeah, I don't think that Dustin Jacoby could have fought any better of like a game plan. If you think about how he attacked Khalil Roundtree, it was a lot of volume, kind of defense by offense in a way where he just wants to, pepper you and stay in your face so that you don't have the time or the wherewithal to like pick your punches and land those big power punches. I wouldn't say he got clipped too hard too many times. But if you're in the cage with Khalil Roundtree for 15 minutes, you're going to take some hard ones.
Yeah.
And I mean, his face definitely showed it, but it's tough because I think he fought the right game plan, but ultimately just didn't get the decision win there.
Yep. And I mean, he did good work at times, but ultimately that close of a fight. Like I'm just going to come back to the damage thing. I don't think Jacoby did enough damage to really say this is a robbery by any means. So
yeah, I would definitely
close fight.
It was a robbery because rounds 2 and 3 were very close and could go either way. Just depends who's
in the MMA world now on social media, everything's a robbery. I'm starting to see come back to robberies. I'm starting to see UFC fighters and MMA people are in the community starting to say, oh, hold on a minute. I watched that Sean O'Malley fight back, and it's a lot closer than people think. I know like Aljamain Sterling came out and said, I actually watching it back think Sean O'Malley did win. But yeah, robbery, that's just thrown around so much now. So.
No. And I actually watched Laura Sanko's breakdown. There's like a 30-minute breakdown of the Sean O'Malley Petr Yan fight, and she is, a registered judge, so she knows how these judges are looking at the fights and everything. So that was a good breakdown. She really pointed out a lot of things that within the ruling of how judges are supposed to score the fights. It makes a lot of sense on why they're giving these decisions to people that the average MMA fan might think, oh, well, this guy landed more strikes, or this guy had 3 minutes of takedown, control time on the ground for the round, but then the other 2 minutes he was, took a couple big shots, but that's more damage on the feet that they ultimately reward. So
yeah,
if anyone's watching this, I would recommend go watching that breakdown she did. It gives a lot of insight into what the judges are looking for, and if you're betting on MMA, you should definitely take that into account because I'm one that likes to bet on wrestlers, but moving forward, it's kind of a tough deal to put forward because if a guy takes you down, holds you there for 3 minutes, and then you get back up, they land a couple shots, he does no damage on the ground.
Yeah,
also, it's going to be the guy that did more damage. So
yeah,
definitely got to take that into account.
I think what the UFC has done and the athletic commissions have done with making the criteria for judging, heavily based off of damage instead of control time in wrestling is I think the UFC and the commissions take the boos in the crowds to heart whenever a guy's just trying to chain wrestle on the fence or just basically holds onto a leg up against the fence and tries to get control time. I think they know that that's not what the fans want to see.
No.
So they're encouraging this damage. They're encouraging guys to go out there and, try to put guys away, try to land the big shots instead of just trying to control people. But I mean, at the end of the day, fans do want to see knockouts. They do want to see more than just, wrestling and control time. But so I understand. But at the end of the day, you watch a fight, you're like, okay, he definitely won, but control time just doesn't weigh as much as the damage and striking does these days.
Yeah, yeah. And if you're a fighter that wants to go in there and take them down and just control it, you have to do that for the entire round. Like
Right.
that has to be your. If I take him down, I have to keep him here, or I have to start landing some ground and pound. So,
Yep.
all right, enough of that. We'll move on to the featured prelim. Phil Hawes and Roman Dolidze. This one was all action, man. Dolidze, I know you were swayed over back to Dolidze
I was.
right before the fight.
Thank God.
Yeah. Just watching the weigh-in when they do the face-offs, guy was like such a big discrepancy in the size. Phil Hawes is a pretty shredded dude, but Roman Dolidze is like a big dude. Used to fight at heavyweight. And then this one looked really good on the feet, and then got that leg lock, tears his knee off.
Yeah.
Lets go because he just tore his knee off, and Hawes gets back up to his feet. Dolidze's like, "Are you really just gonna come back and fight me?" and Hawes hangs on for as long as he can, and then can't really move at all. Dolidze hits him with the 3-piece, drops him.
It was nasty. It was nasty.
Nasty finish. Hit him 3 times before he hit the ground. And yeah, that was Herb Dean. I believe Herb Dean was the ref in that one, and it was just like Dolidze was like, "Dude, stop this! Like, I don't want to hurt this guy any more than I just have. I just ripped his knee off. You want me to break his head too?" Herb Dean's like, "Yeah, I kind of want you to do that." So he did it, and Hawes will be paying the price for that.
Yeah, and Dolidze, you got to respect him a little bit for not going after the leg. He knew that leg was mangled. I mean, He knew that the knee was, torn. So I think him going for the knockout was a lot more respectful than trying to just kick his leg off and end it that way and do some serious damage. You could tell he didn't want to kick that leg anymore because he knew how bad he had hurt him. But yeah, no, Phil Hawes gets up and Dolidze points, like looks at Herb Dean and was like, you're not going to stop the fight? I mean, the guy has a torn ACL or, blew out his knee. And Herb just said, keep fighting. And Dolidze's like, okay. And then eventually that 3-piece combo, I mean, all 3 of those shots landed flush.
Yeah.
And they were nasty. And, but, Phil Hawes is tough as they come to continue. And even on one leg, he landed a few shots in there that I was like, okay, Dolidze, let's go. Put him out. Come on.
Yeah.
Let's get it going. Because there's a few shots I'm like, oh, shit. Kind of stopped Dolidze in his track. But I'm glad we got the win on that one as an underdog. Got the knockout plus 500. I liked it. I like that. I like seeing those guys like Dolidze who, are getting a little disrespected on the odds for being such a good striker and powerful dude. And then he goes out there and beats a guy like Phil Hawes. He's definitely going to, his stock's definitely going up after that one.
Yeah, I kind of think that was a smart game plan for Dolidze to not like attack him right away when he was hurt.
Yeah.
Because if you know that you just tore his knee off, like he's not going to just recover from that. Like you should probably be a little patient. If he just goes in there swinging, he might get clipped.
Yeah.
And that would just be a really bad look, getting knocked out by knee. So good composure there, and I'm glad he got the finish and the win. Cash our tickets there.
Yep.
Move on to the heavyweight fight. This one a bit of a shock on how it ended, but DeLima getting the sub, the rear naked choke on Andre Arlovski. The win streak comes to an end for the man who's been around since 1997, I believe.
Long time.
And DeLima much bigger weight wise, not in height, but just looked so much more powerful, and it showed. When he started swinging, Andre was like, I don't know what to do, and he got like dropped with a punch to the chest.
Yeah,
and then DeLima just kind of hopped on him, was too heavy, and was looking for some ground and pound. Arlovski gave up the neck, and that was it for that one. I was hoping he was gonna just keep punching, but because I had a
Yeah,
KO. But
I know. I had him by KO too, and there's a few times I thought, okay, he's got him, flattened out.
yeah,
Maybe ref's gonna step in and stop this one. He didn't. Then he found the neck, and it's just like, fuck, man. But DeLima is good on the ground. It's just the heavyweight division is a tough division to get submissions in because the dudes are so big. You can't always get your hooks in. You can't always get in that position to find the neck. So it's usually, if you do get a guy flattened out, instead of finding the neck, you're usually going to find the TKO. We were close, but yeah. No, DeLima, though, I thought he'd win coming into this fight just because Arlovsky, yeah, he's on a winning streak. But we talked last week when we were breaking down these fights that some of those wins are split decisions. Didn't necessarily look the best. And he is old. So at some point or another, this thing was going to come to an end, this win streak. And I thought DeLima had the ability and the skills to just do it by knockout. Ended up getting the sub. But either way, DeLima winning the fight, that's kind of what I figured was going to happen in this one.
Yeah, I will admit I sprinkled a little tiny bit on Arlovsky by split decision at like plus 1100 just to be safe in case it went to decision.
Yep.
Because that Apex just goes crazy for him every time. He gets out there to fight too. I'm like, geez, it worried me too much, but DeLima got it done pretty easily in that one. Jun Young Park and Joseph Holmes. As I told you earlier, had a lot invested in Jun Young Park, and you kept saying that this one didn't have a good feeling about this one. I'm like, well, fuck, maybe what did I do here? What did I do wrong? But it was already put in, and ultimately I got what I wanted. And Jun Young Park gets the rear naked choke in round 2. I was really confident in this one on PrizePicks. Over 89.5 fantasy score for Jin Young Park. He had hit it in his past like 4 or 5 fights. I'm like, if he gets a finish, then he gets more than that. In most of his fights, he gets, even if he doesn't get the finish, he'll get there on significant strikes, takedowns. He mixes it up a lot, so he's going to be able to get those points. But I also had him in a couple of parlays and straight up. And then I don't know why, but I just get so concerned when fighters are under James Krause, because James Krause is like such a heady fighter and such a heady coach. Like he knows ways to win when like he can get people wins when they just shouldn't be winning. Like I just think back to like the Trey Ogden fight against Sel Huber. Like if James Krause isn't that guy's coach, like I don't think he ever has that game plan of like going out there and doing that. But ultimately, Jun Young Park gets the dub for us, and I was glad about that because I was getting a little worried about it.
Yeah, and no, James Krause, you're right. It seems like all of his fighters always win round 3 because he gets them fired up. He tells them exactly what they need to hear. So if this fight goes, if it's a close fight going into the 3rd round, you got to start to like Holmes's chances. But Park looked a lot better than I thought he would. I didn't think Park would necessarily lose. I just didn't like it. I didn't like the feel of the fight. Park is sometimes he lands good significant strikes with good volume and some takedowns, but sometimes it's just not the hardest significant strikes. He doesn't really put guys away. And same thing with Holmes. Holmes really needed to get it to the ground and find a submission to win, and I didn't think he'd be able to do that. So I thought this was just going to be a super close fight that went all the way to the cards, and then you're just kind of guessing at who is going to get their name called. Luckily, though, Park went out there, good submission, locked it in, and ultimately got the win and looked pretty good doing it. So yeah, no sweat there. It was good cash for you. Then that's good. I didn't throw anything on this fight again because some fights like that I just don't have a good feel on, and that was one of them. But glad he won.
Yeah, the first round had me sweating a little bit. The size discrepancy in the two. Joseph Holmes like 6'4", Iron Turtle like 5'10". On the feet, he just had such a reach advantage. And then once Park got in the inside, started taking him down, I'm like, okay, let's keep this game plan. Stay there. and then I'm glad he won too. But this one was a bit of not. I mean, I wouldn't say too much of a shock because we were both kind of weary about Chase Hooper as a minus 300 favorite. But he looked absolutely awful.
Oh man,
He got murdered in round one. I'll let you start on this one.
yeah, Chase Hooper, super skilled. On the ground, he's super skilled and he's long and flexible, and he uses that really really well to his advantage. But the problem's going to be for him is getting it to the ground. He's not a real strong guy. His striking. His offensive striking has improved over the course of the last few fights. We didn't really get to see it in this fight, but his last fight, he got the TKO once he got it to the ground. But the stand-up, he did find some good shots in his last few fights. But he doesn't like to get hit, and you can see that. He got cracked once, and then every time he got touched, he would turtle up and turn to the side, not even shoot a takedown. I mean, he was just, at that point, shelling up, just trying not to take any more damage. And ultimately, he got dropped 3 times and just didn't have an answer. He'd try to do spinning, back fist, spinning elbows, anything at all he could do to just find a Hail Mary. But he's got to figure out some wrestling, or he's got to, Eminari roll into the legs or something at that point. But he was trying nothing. I don't know, man. He got mauled. And Steve Garcia, dude, hats off to him. He came out there and he said, this kid's younger than me. This kid's weaker than me. I'm going to put him on him from the beginning, and I'll see if he has any kind of answer for me. And the answer was no. Steve Garcia, super powerful. Those shots, would have rocked anybody. He was hitting Chase Hooper really, really hard, and he was hitting him very accurately. Ultimately, I was wrong. I thought Chase Hooper submission. I thought Chase would roll into the legs and then find a knee bar. And if he didn't get the knee bar, just transition to get on top and eventually find a submission. Definitely didn't happen, though. He didn't get him down one time. The only time the fight was on the ground was when Chase Hooper was getting dropped. So that was a quick one. And if you were on Steve Garcia and you took him by knockout, it was a huge winning ticket. I was not on that side, unfortunately. But Steve Garcia looked pretty good. I don't necessarily think Steve Garcia is a phenomenal fighter or anything, but he looked good last night for sure.
Yeah, but Chase Hooper looked absolutely terrible. Like, he looked so unathletic, very slow, and it looked like he just wasn't in the fight at all. Like, he got knocked out 3 times in 90 seconds. This fight lasted 92 seconds. He got knocked down 3 times and ultimately knocked out. I guess moving forward, like, I think Steve Garcia just gave the game plan on how to beat this guy. Basically, just pressure him to the point where you make him uncomfortable. He kept getting cracked. He would get up, and then, as you said, just trying to like start throwing Hail Mary shots. Like, everything. I don't know what his game plan was, but obviously, once he got hit, everything in his game plan was out the door. And he just wanted to get all those shots back and did not get a single shot back because his stand-up is just disgusting to watch, slow. I mean, this guy's big for the weight class. He should be able to keep guys at range if he wants to. Just look a little bit athletic out there. Look like an athlete. Like,
right.
You're a young guy. You should be a bit more of an athlete.
Yeah.
That's a thing you see, like, with these young guys that are based in like a BJJ. They're just not strong. They're not like, there's a difference between being confident in BJJ and being confident in like striking, Muay Thai, boxing. Like, there's a strength and a charisma that you have that makes you a little bit more feared as a young guy going an older guy like Steve Garcia. Steve Garcia is going to look at you and be like, okay, you kind of look like a bitch. Like, I can just go in there and start swinging. What the hell are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
He did just that and ultimately knocks him out in brutal fashion. So,
yeah. And you could tell right after the first time Chase got dropped, he didn't want any part of it. That final time where he got dropped on the ground, he just turtled up and said, hit me a few times till the ref pulls you off. Because with Chase's jiu-jitsu, and Steve followed him down into his guard. And, I mean, Chase could have tried to wrap him up, try to hold on for dear life till he got his wits about him and then started fishing submissions, but he didn't try to do anything with it. He was done. Another fight like that, if Chase gets mauled like that again and shows, the little timidness of getting hit or anything like that, the UFC is probably just going to say, hey,
Yeah.
This organization is not for you.
Go to Flow Grappling or something.
Yeah, because Chase, I kept hearing him say the fan favorite Chase Hooper, and he's so young, and I know people tune in to watch because he is so young.
He was really like the first young guy to come in,
right?
So
Yeah,
it's kind of like that first like young blood, and it's just not really panning out.
no,
and now there's just everybody's coming in young, so it's like
it makes you. I don't know if people were necessarily as high on Chase Hooper as they are like this Raul Rosas Jr. kid or anything, but it just shows you that, sometimes you do come into the UFC a little bit too young and it can be detrimental to your career. Chase Hooper probably could have stayed in the regional scene a lot longer and got some experience with guys who are, decent on the feet, but aren't like Steve Garcia, who's, older, wiser, stronger, and is just going to come in there and disregard all of your skills and just implement his game plan and try to get you out of there. If he stays on the regional scene, he gets way more experience. But those young kids, sometimes they get in the UFC and they just get thrown to the wolves. And I think that's what's happened with Hooper. Hopefully he recovers and we see him get a win, but he's got to fix some things. He's got to sharpen up the offensive wrestling. He's got to sharpen up the striking, learn some, to manage his distance, because he is longer and taller than everybody he fights.
Yeah.
So if he could figure out a way to gauge the distance and then get the fights to the ground, he might be successful. But right now, he's got a lot to work on.
Yeah. Well, a once young Charles Oliveira was in somewhat of a similar situation, getting finished in some, I guess, kind of quitter ways. And look at him now. So who knows? Chase Hooper is young enough that he has a lot of time to improve. So who knows? But at this point, it's not looking good. But moving on to the flyweight fight, your call on the underdog came true. Cody Durden went out there and wrestled Carlos Mota for 12 minutes and 32 seconds. Basically had his way with him. Carlos Mota, I believe he had cut like 25 pounds in a day or something like that. What I heard. So I do think this guy has really good skills. From what I was looking at, watching tape and everything, Carlos Mota as a favorite, I didn't want to bet it because it's his debut. And I know Cody Durden has a pretty good style to, take down, to disrupt your game plan or disrupt anything that you've done previous to this. So I didn't bet it. I do think this guy does have some pretty good skills. If you give him a full camp, he was coming in on short notice. I think he could do some decent stuff in the flyweight division, but it was all Cody Durden in that one. Got anything on this one?
Yeah, no, the reason I took Cody Durden is, Mota coming in, UFC debut. I don't like to bet guys on their UFC debut unless it's like a striker versus another striker. But, I knew Mota coming in is going to have to fight a guy like Cody Durden who's going to wrestle. He's going to take you down. And I just think that the skill gap from like the regional scenes and where Mota was jumping up to the UFC to fight a grappler like that never goes at the UFC debuter's way. And Cody Durden implemented that game plan flawlessly. He didn't even give Mota a chance to show off any of the skills he has. Mm-hmm. He smothered him, he controlled him, and just grinded out the decision win. And that's what I was banking on. That's one reason that I took Durden in this fight, was I just thought the grappling and the wrestling was going to be way too much for Mota to handle. Mota did catch him in some, sketchy situations with the arm bars and stuff, but Durden was, good enough on the ground to know to stay calm, and then eventually got out of those positions and then just kind of beat him up for 3 rounds and 30-27 across the board to get it done.
Yeah, Mota was playing guard for majority of the fight, and
yeah,
it almost looked like it gets to a point where you're like, okay, that's enough playing guard. Like, try to get back to your feet. But Durden kind of just made it to where he didn't really have a choice. He just had to. So, props to Cody Durden getting the underdog ticket. Props to you for taking him. First fight of the night: Christian Rodriguez, Joshua Weems. Rodriguez gets the round 1 finish. I know we were both on him by KO round 1.
Yeah.
So that one kind of sucked, but nonetheless, Rodriguez gets it done. I also had a lot invested into Rodriguez. I messaged our group that Weems missed weight, and if you watch the weigh-ins, like the dude could barely walk,
Mm-hmm.
walking up to the scale, walking back to the green room there or whatever. Yeah, that just kind of made me want to just throw everything I owned on Christian Rodriguez. But at minus 400 was like a bit of a too big of a price to get too invested into it. I did have
Yeah.
a good amount of stuff on him, but I was happy he got it done. He looked pretty good. I don't think Josh Weems is UFC material,
Yeah, I
but
agree.
nonetheless, I mean, he won and got it done in the first round, so I can't knock him at all.
Yeah. No, Rodriguez looked pretty good. I think he's a super talented fighter. I think he's got a lot of room to get even better as well. So that's the good news for him. Like you said, we had that KO prop. I thought that would be the way he got it done. I know he is, skilled on the ground and with the grappling and jiu-jitsu, but I thought with the missed weight cut, there'd be no chin left there for Weems. Rodriguez is accurate and hits hard enough where I thought early on in the fight he was going to end the show by knockout. Ended up being submission. But yeah, I think as far as a prospect goes, I think Christian Rodriguez has a pretty high ceiling, and he's going to do some good things in the UFC. I'm excited to watch him fight again. I really do like his skills, and he's really well rounded. He showed too. So
yeah, me too. Definitely someone I'll be looking to back in the future. I think he's really good on the feet, really good on the ground.
yeah.
I don't think he has a lot of holes, but I'm sure they'll get exposed eventually as he climbs the ladder. He looks really composed on the feet. I mean, the guy was just not necessarily flat-footed, but just not really wasting any energy bouncing or trying to fake or anything. Just very calm and composed, hands up, and explodes when he needs to. And then on the ground, just looked really slick. Him and Weems were kind of going back and forth a little bit on the ground there, and then he snatches up that anaconda choke.
Yep.
Didn't take long to sink it in. So looks pretty talented.
Yeah, no, Rodriguez, you mentioned, and it just kind of popped in my head that he does manage his energy really, really well. And that's, you don't see that a lot with younger fighters and these guys that are just getting into UFC. You see them, tense, a little bit nervous, and go out there and they explode and they start telegraphing shots, but he keeps everything tight, stays very, very calm and composed. And at a young age, that's a really, really good sign to have success inside the UFC. So that's good to see.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add? But as I said, I went 6-5 for my picks, so not great as far as that goes. A good amount of underdogs came through. Cody Durden, Delize, Roundtree. Is that it? Seems about it.
Yeah, no, Durden and Delize definitely helped me out a lot. My friend Matt convinced me to take Delize by knockout, so that one helped a lot too. Some bets like the Jacoby bet I had, they're just frustrating at the end of the day. Overall, we were in the green, but like I said, just the Jacoby fight, the main event, I did take Kattar because I'm a Kattar fan, and I should not let my bias control which bets I take. But the freak injury like that, those things are just frustrating.
Yeah, it sucked.
But in 2 weeks, we've got UFC 281, Israel Adesanya, and Alex Pereira. I can't wait for that one. I want to hear your thoughts on that fight before we go. Who you're leaning for right now in that one?
Yeah. So I gotta say I'm leaning towards Alex Pereira. Just the power, the crypto. He's Izzy's kryptonite. Like
Yep.
I don't know if I'm just getting too caught up in that. Like getting too emotionally invested into it. But it's not like I don't like Izzy. Like I like Izzy and everything, but I just think it's his time to lose.
Yeah.
As far as everything goes, he's undefeated in the weight class. Alex Pereira's beat him twice. So as far as a mental standpoint, like nobody really challenges Izzy in that way. Alex Pereira kind of has that different factor. And then obviously very skilled, very big,
Right.
very
He's
powerful. If it goes if it's 5 rounds on the feet, I don't know how Pereira doesn't clip him at least once.
Yeah.
And if he does clip him, I don't know. We haven't seen Izzy's chin really checked, so it's like,
Right.
who knows? I mean, Pereira's knocked him out once in kickboxing, so who knows? What are you thinking on it?
Yeah, it's a tough one, but like you said with the mental aspect, you're going into a fight knowing this guy's beat you twice. That's got to be a tough hurdle to get over. Like, shit, I've got to beat him here. I can't let this guy sweep me 3-0, because if you get beat by him, you're probably not fighting again anytime soon, at least. But Izzy is super talented on the feet as well. It's just so tough to call because MMA is a complete different game than kickboxing even.
Mm-hmm.
And we just haven't really seen Pereira up against anybody like Izzy that's that sharp striking wise. So it'll just be super interesting. I think we'll truly see how well Alex Pereira's game translates into MMA when he fights Izzy, because we've seen him against Strickland, which obviously we know what happened there. So he's got the power to knock anybody out. The striking is obviously there, and there's not probably going to be any takedown shot by Izzy. So it's just going to be if he can catch Izzy. Izzy's really good defensively. He's good offensively when he wants to let go. I don't think Izzy's going to be able to just sit back and point fight this one to a decision. I think there's going to be a few times where Izzy's going to have to get after it, and he's going to have to scrap. So right now, I'd probably lean Pereira just from the mental aspect, and he's done it before. He knows he can do it again.
Right.
But you can't count Izzy out either. He's the champ and has been the champ for a while for a reason. Going to be super fun though. I cannot wait for that one.
Yeah, it's almost like it's dog or pass, just based off of like how they match up and everything.
Yeah.
But saying dog or pass when it's Izzy is like hard to say.
Yeah.
Literally never lost at 185. So
yep.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. That card is really stacked. Next week we got first card of November, Lemos and Rodriguez.
Yep.
Rodriguez. So another women's main event, but a pretty solid fight. I actually think that's going to be a pretty good main event for that strawweight division. So I'm kind of looking forward to that one as well. I haven't looked too far into everyone on the card, but I'm looking forward to that one. We'll be back with the predictions video for that one on Wednesday. If everything goes correct, I'll have this posted on Monday. So thank you for watching the double leg on all medias at the double leg, TikTok and Instagram. And if you're watching here, please like, subscribe, and comment. If you want to follow me at HeyJaiPicks on all medias, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. That's pretty much it. And my YouTube, I guess. But go ahead and plug yourself.
Yep. For me, TikTok's The Parlay, Instagram, The Parlay_media, and YouTube, The Parlay MMA.
All righty. Thank you again. And we will see you in the predictions video for, is it UFC Vegas 64 now?
64.
Another Apex card. So get your earplugs ready for that one. It's going to be a banger. So, all righty. Double leg.